of marketing plans, the exhibits, and it's closely tied to metrics, so I'm including that in here. We're going to take a look at various charts and graphs and different things you can put in exhibits and marketing plans to further prove your point. And this is the point with exhibits. It's a little more free-flowing. You can be more creative with it, but the idea here is to prove the points you make in the marketing plan. So let's take a look at a couple ideas here. Line charts are typically good to show a representation of growth over time. This may be necessary, for instance, if you are showing, if you're doing a marketing plan for your Instagram profile and you want to show increases in followers over time and how this plan will help that increase it even more, right? So it's a good way to represent growth. Everybody understands this when they look at it. And that's what you want in an exhibit. You want everyone to understand things that are really plain and clear. Here is an example of this in real life. This is a Google Analytics review of page views and versus average time on a page on a website. And we see here on the end here, there's a big blip, and there's one here too in the beginning. And this is a way that you can prove a point in a marketing plan where you can talk about why so many people visited the site in that one spot around October 29th could be a reason to prove your point about a content marketing push marketing plan, right? So you would use this to show that that's what we should be doing. Let's take a look at a couple more. Column charts are really good too. They show the relationship between groups of data in comparison. And it's usually within a set period of time. So this might show growth, but it shows growth over the months, right? And you may be showing how things are going and how they're going to end up, right? So this is a good column chart to use too. Here is an example of this in real life. This is analytics. And here I'm showing some ads that I did for a local lawyer that's a client of mine. And it shows how women tend to be clicking on their ad links more because we make much of it being an all-women firm, right? So it's showing how that's a demographic and a target market in your situational analysis that is relevant and important to point out in your marketing plan. Pie charts are good to show how you're going to highlight parts of a whole. So let's say that you're doing a ad campaign and you're talking about where your budget is going. This pie chart would clearly show that 30% is going to Google, 20% to Yelp, and 50% to the Huffington Post, right? So it's a good way of showing you're higher up in the exhibit at the end of the marketing plan where the budget allocation goes. It's a beautiful way of doing it and really easy for them to understand. Here's another way of doing it. This is a donut chart, really, rather than a pie chart. It's a variation, and it shows how people are using desktop versus mobile versus tablet. Now, on this website, it goes against contrary wisdom because usually these days, a lot of visitors to websites are on mobile. But this one's about half and half. So it could prove your point in how you have a marketing plan to update your website and how you want to update it based on some of this data. And you might show that in your exhibit. So device usage could be a good thing. Again, this is Google Analytics. Matrix charts or rubrics organize qualitative data. Qualitative data is versus quantitative data. Qualitative data is words, right? It's opinion, but it's informed opinion. So when we look at the SWOT, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, those are what people generally might think are the strengths and weaknesses, and you'd put them down in that, and that's a matrix chart. And that could be a good exhibit as well if you're starting out on something and want to show how the ad campaign might attack those weaknesses and turn them into pluses. Here's another use of a matrix chart. This is ad clicks by time of day for some ads that I'm doing. And you can see with the darker ones that I'm getting more on Sunday evenings and Wednesday mornings or Tuesday mornings, which makes sense because Wednesdays and Thursdays tend to be my strongest days in my business. With a positioning map, you're showing the spatial representation of perceived relationships. So the perceived relationship between Windows OS for phone, which is like non-existent these days, versus Android and iOS, can be seen pretty clearly on this chart. This might also show up in a map, right? So positioning maps are the same thing. This one shows in analytics where your traffic is coming from. Clearly, it's the western part of the United States with a smattering of spammers in Africa, India, and Europe, right? So that's, or maybe not spammers, but at least visitors from those areas, right? So that's spatial relationships um, with that, positioning maps. Flowcharts are actually a good diagram to do if you've got a process that's integral to your marketing campaign, right? You might actually show, hey, you start with this. If it yes, then you go here. If no, you go there. This simple one about turning on a lamp or changing a light bulb is a very easy one to understand, but sometimes we need these kind of flowcharts to show the relationship between what the marketer is doing and why they're doing it, and can make it really clear as to what next steps there are. And some executives really love that because they know that nothing's going to deviate from it if it's a yes or if it's a no. So it's a good idea to try that too. Project management is a good one too because you can show how long something's going to take and what it takes to get there. This is a Gantt chart that is a common project management tool. You can use Microsoft Project for this or a bunch of other different programs. And you can see that over time, it shows you the steps it would take to get the job done. And sometimes this is a good exhibit to do for jobs that may on the on the first blush, look like they don't take very much time, but when they actually do, and you can show the steps. And this is always good because sometimes I think that executives need to know how much work it takes to get to a certain place. And then finally, I include organizational charts as well as a potentially good exhibit because oftentimes in a big organization, it's hard to know who has the authority to say yes, right? Who do you need to, you might have a RACI, right? Which is a general formula for responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed in an organization, right? RACI. And these are the people that you could put an R, an A, or a C, or an I next to this whole org chart to show who would be responsible or accountable for an ad campaign and who would make the final decisions and who might just be informed. Or you might go to them and show them the ad and get their feedback, but they're not the one that's making the final decision. Sometimes it's really important to show that. And that's what I got for exhibits. The other styles of exhibits you could use for the marketing plan project in our class could be like a mock-up. You could do a drawing. You could use Photoshop and bring in an image and type up a post if you're working on Instagram or Facebook or something. You could create a fake ad just to show what you were planning on. Those kind of things are fine for exhibits as well.